Hello everyone, I'm Dan Dames. Recently, I had the pleasure of meeting a gentleman from Pennsylvania. He's the foremost authority on 1920s cone speakers. Those speakers were manufactured between the years of 1924 and 1927. He's restored many of them for radio collectors. If you're a 1920s collector, you know the name. It's Buford Chidester. Many of you may have talked to him on the phone and sent him your 1920s cone speakers to be restored. And if you did, it was a smart move. I'm sure when you got them back, it was a work of art and they looked just like new. Others may have met Buford at the AWA conventions in upstate New York, where he's a regular. Buford Chidester has restored a few speakers for me, and he's always done a fantastic job. I've talked to him on the phone for years, and it was nice to finally get to meet him in person. And I took the opportunity to interview him so all of you could finally get to meet Buford Chidester and get to know him. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the interview. You'll find it educational, and you'll be glad you got the chance to finally meet Buford Chidester. Hello everybody, I'm Dan Dames, and you're watching the Roaring Twenties Radio YouTube channel. And today I'm here with Buford Chidester. And for those of you who collect radios, you probably know Buford as the foremost expert on cone speakers, which were made between 1925 and 27?
1924, 25, 26, and 27.
Okay, Buford is the foremost expert on these speakers and has done a terrific job of restoring speakers that could have ended up in a dumpster, and now they're proudly displayed on collector's shelves. Okay, Buford, tell us about yourself.
Well, I was born and raised in West Virginia, around Buckhannon, West Virginia, which is the center part. But when I grew up, I enjoyed tinkering with just about everything. And when I was a teenager, I built my own radio transmitter and put it on the line, and I just enjoyed. I had a couple speakers. In fact, I had an RCA speaker, 100, and I had a Utah speaker, the wooden one. I didn't like the 100 because I could never get it to work right. Mm-hmm. But I continued on. I graduated from high school, and I joined the Air Force. I'm an Air Force veteran. And I worked in the Air Force as a civil engineer. And when I got out of the Air Force, RCA in Lancaster County wanted me to work for them. And I had a top secret clearance, and they wouldn't tell me what they wanted me to do. So I wanted to work for RCA because growing up as a kid, I always heard about RCA. I never knew where it was at. And one day, some friends of mine, we were going out to Gettysburg. We'd never been there, but we got lost, and here we found the RCA plant. So I accepted RCA's offer to work for them. And what it was working on the camera tube for Apollo 11, plus working on a lot of other design, microwave, picture tubes. That's when the black and white picture tube was developed in the 1960s. Mm-hmm. And went on from there, and I left RCA and went to work for M&M Mars, designing wrapping machines for the Three Musketeer candy bars. And I always liked the Three Musketeer candy bars, but working there all the time, I got to the point I didn't really like them that well.
Got sick of it after a while.
But it was rotating shifts, and I just didn't like rotating shifts. But there was a company that had refrigeration equipment there, and they had a problem with it, and they couldn't get it repaired. So I decided that I'll repair it for them, which I did. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to hire me. They didn't have an electrical engineering department, but they wanted me to start it. So I did start it, electrical engineering department, and I designed all types of chemical companies, pharmaceutical company, equipment, aircraft test labs. First lab I ever did for an automobile was the Corvette up in Rochester, and but I was involved in a lot of things. I was an electrical design engineer. From then on, I went back to college, Millersville and Lancaster and Penn State, and I supervised the electrical engineering department for 32 years, and then I decided to retire. But I didn't have much time to mess around with my speakers. In fact, I didn't have any at that point. So my wife and I went to Renninger's over in Lancaster County, antique show, and lo and behold, we found an old speaker over there. Huh. And this happened to be it. And this is a Victor speaker.
Oh, yeah.
And originally it had a real thin cone on it. Mm-hmm. And it didn't have the cones on it, so I didn't know what it was. Mm-hmm. So I took it to some of the radio shows, and it took me a while to find an ad or something on it to see what the cone looked like, material. Right. But until that time, I decided that I knew it had a pleated cone, but I didn't have the material to make the cone. And I wanted to make the cones. There was a cone on either side, volume control in the top. And so I took a grocery bag, and I made these cones. Wow. Those are grocery bag cones.
No kidding.
And I never changed them. But I know now what the original paper was, and I've done quite a few of these speakers for people. Mm-hmm. And but I left the grocery bag cones on there.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
And
great. Now, so those are harder to make than a regular cone.
Oh yeah. Well, they are. I like design. I've been in design all my life, mm-hmm. and it's a challenge. So from then on, we found out up in Rochester, the AWA in Rochester, every year they'd have this big flea market and seminars and all that. So they wanted me to do seminars on restoration of speakers. Mm-hmm. So I did seminars up there for quite a while, and but that was before I retired, and that kept me busy doing all that. Plus, I supervised the engineering department. I had quite a few people working for me. And when I retired in 2005, I got back into the speakers. But before that, I was compiling information on speakers, like the ads and everything I could find, so I know what they look like. And because back then, a lot of collectors didn't collect speakers. They didn't know what they were. If you find a frame out there with no cone on it, you didn't know what it was. Mm-hmm. A lot of the antique dealers called them door stops. And they weren't door stops, but I started getting them, and I started making cones for them. And it was quite a challenge, but after 2005, I was getting into it more and more all the time, and I enjoyed doing the artwork. I enjoyed doing just the mechanical part of it. I make parts. If you can't get a part for an antique radio speaker, sometimes you have to make it. Mm-hmm. So I bought a lathe, and I make some little parts for them, because you can't. There's no way you can get them. Right. Right. And so my wife and I decided, after I compiled a book, that I didn't intend to get the book published, but all the collectors wanted me to do a book, and I was getting more and more information, mm-hmm. so I could do a book. So, yeah, that is the book, and Classic Cones, and there's
Buford and Jane Chidester.
Yes, and at that time, I had about 195 cone speakers that I was repairing, and it took a lot of research. My wife did a lot of research on everything in the book, and I found a publisher, they wanted to do it in black and white, and I said, you can't publish it in black and white, it has to be in color.
Oh, yeah.
So when I was up at Rochester one time, I found a publisher's name, and I told the people at the desk, the front desk, when he comes here, have him to find me, look me up. Well, the publisher did come there, but it wasn't the publisher I asked for. I gave the front desk the wrong name. But this is published by Sonoran Publishing Company, mm-hmm. and I had my preliminary book along, and he looked at it and said, well, it looks nice, but give me a call. This was in September I was up there, and he said, give me a call in February. He said, no, don't call me. He said, send me an email. Well, my computer was down in February. So I got it back up and I sent it to him, and he says, get all that information on that book to me right away. I want to publish it. So I told him, I said, I don't have the index ready, and I don't have a lot of the text ready, but I can send you what I have, and you can take a look and plan on what you're doing. So that's what we did, and he published a book, and it's distributed all over the world now. You know, I don't know how many books are out there, but I talk to people in Italy, Japan, and Australia, and England. They have the book, you know, and so that got me started. But every one of these old speakers I would find, I would research the cone and see if I could get a torn up original cone so I could get the pattern.
Right, right.
So it was hard for me because the paper has to be a certain thickness, and the color has to be right, mm-hmm. and you couldn't buy the paper with the right color. So the first paper I made a couple of cones and took to the show down in Maryland, but it rained that day, and it got water spots on it. So I thought, well, we got to solve that because you can't have that, you know. So I made samples, and I actually hung them outside in the rain to test them to see if I got water spots on them. So I got that problem solved. Now you can soak them down with water, and it don't hurt them. You're not supposed to do that, but I mean.
Is that the paper or the coating you put on it that prevents water spots?
Yeah, I use acrylic, water-based acrylic paint, airbrush it to get the color.
Okay.
And once it's dry, it's waterproof.
Oh, okay, that's good.
And you can see these cones. Mm-hmm. Whenever when I get the paper, it's a light gray. Okay. So I have to color it the right way. And you can see some of them are wood grain cones. I do that by hand. Some of them are very thin, like a wax paper type cone. It's got to be colored.
I wondered how you did that. I was wondering, how does he find all those papers, and you don't. You use one paper and color it yourself all.
Yeah.
Okay.
You just can't buy the paper. You know, I buy it. And you can't, like the Greeby cone there, you'll see it later, but the Greeby cone is a very rare speaker, and I couldn't find an original cone to see what it looked like. So I was talking to a guy in England, and he says, do you think you can make one of those? And I said, I don't have the patterns. He said, you know what? He said, I got an old beat up cone. He says, I'll see that you get it. So he did. He sent it to me. Mm-hmm. So I could tell the color, I could tell the design, and if you look at the design on the speaker, it's the same that's in the ad. Mm-hmm. And I made him a cone, and I made myself a cone, which you're looking at right now.
That's great.
But that's a challenge for me. I really enjoy trying to get everything as close as I possibly can.
Right.
You know, I don't like to do speakers with put some oddball color or design on them. I like to see them.
The original.
If you look at the ads, you'll see the designs on these are like the ads. Mm-hmm. Now, Western Electric was a big manufacturer of speakers, and they made three sizes, 18, 24, and 36-inch speakers.
Okay.
And I got the original cones for those. They're all ripped up, and I put them back together, and I could get the pattern off. And these are Western Electric there. This one over here is made in Scotland, and this one's France. And the one behind here, it's called a Northern Electric, made in Canada. And the guy called me from Canada and said, "Can you make me a cone?" And I said, "Well, I don't have a pattern." He said, "Well, I have the old cone. I'll send it to you if you'll make me one." So he did. And Northern Electric, you'll see one in the other room there, but it's a different type speaker altogether. Mm-hmm. The U.S.-made speakers, or the Western Electrics, are basically the same color, but you see the design on those are a little bit different. Right. And that's the way the original was. But mm-hmm. They just continued on and going to the antique shops or the flea markets and tried finding frames. Some of them were cast iron, some are aluminum, some are wood, and but the speaker that you'll see up there at the top behind your light there, mm-hmm. That speaker came out in 1924. It was the first cone speaker that was actually marketed for the general public. And it sounds horrible. But they made three different colors of that. They made the nickel plated, mm-hmm. and they made a green crackle finish, mm-hmm. and they made a mahogany.
Is the nickel plated the rarest?
Yeah.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, that's we bought that up in Rochester. That's a beautiful little speaker. It's made by Pathé, which Pathé made a high-end phonograph, and they took part of the phonograph and made a speaker out of it. Okay. And after that, it was like everybody was getting on the boat, making speakers, all kinds of speakers. 1925 was a very busy year, 1925 and 26. And late 1927, I believe the date is, they come out with electric radios. They didn't have, they're all battery sets before that.
Right, 28.
So then they started putting speakers inside the radios, and that actually slowed down the external cone speakers. And the reason they have these cone speakers back then, the only thing they had was earphones. Mm-hmm. So, and then they come out with the horn speakers, and they were very directional when you play them, most of them, and they didn't have their frequency response. The frequency response was much higher, yeah. Mm-hmm. So they decided, Pathé somehow, I don't know who decided it, but they come out with the cone speakers, which is not really directional, and they have a very good, most of them have a very good frequency response.
Right, a little less tinny sounding.
Yeah.
Yeah, than the speaker horn.
Yep. And they put all kinds of designs on them, you'll see, but the big ship speakers over there, I have to do the artwork all by, I do it all by hand because you can't print the stuff, But I have...
How long would it take you to do one of those big ones?
About 35 hours, something like that. But what I do on the big cone speakers, I paint the background, I airbrush the background. Okay. And then I overlay, it's actually, if you saw me to do one of them, I would do the background, and then I would do the clouds, and then I would do the ship, and then I'd do the ocean. They're actually... They're laminated. I don't just sit there and paint everything start to top and go to the bottom.
Right.
But it's a challenge, and to get the ink, some of them, that's acrylic paint on there, but a lot of it, the part of the sails and the ropes, the rigging and everything is ink, waterproof ink. Okay. And but
We'll be showing you these speakers when Buford and I are through here. We'll go through Buford's collection. I'll be filming it, and Buford will go through each one and show you his fantastic collection of cone speakers. Go ahead.
well, we had. I have a speaker I want to show you in the other room over there. It's a American Bosch Dragon speaker.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big dragon on the front.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that speaker up at Rochester. They're really very rare. And I've been trying, ever since I started doing this in 1992, I couldn't find one of these speakers to see what the design was on the cone.
Mm-hmm.
And here a couple years ago, the guy called me and he said, I had asked him if he ever saw the Dragon speaker, and he said, well, I have an old beat-up cone. He said, I'll send it to you. So I got it, and it was beat up. I had to tape it all back together and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So then I sit down and I painted it. And it's a beautiful cone. Absolutely. You'll see it over there.
We'll show it.
And, but just things like that, you know, and I don't have, whenever I was growing up, I loved to work on radios and TVs. And I don't have any desire to do that anymore because when I started the speakers, it just took over everything.
Right. That's
and,
what you love. That's what you love the most.
But I'm fascinated with the speakers because there's so many different designs and the artwork, and they really sound good. I'll play them for you after a while.
Oh, yeah.
And,
I've got several, and they do sound so much better than the speaker horns.
Oh, yeah.
Much better.
And
now, Jane, your wife, Jane, she helped you with the book. What about the other stuff? Did she help you on working on the speakers in any way?
My wife, she normally would do all the research, you know, and she loved to do research and work on the computers, but there's some of these speakers has a cloth material, and she would make that material like the RCA.
Right. Yeah.
This material here, she would make that.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
And but this is the RCA 103,
mm-hmm.
and just different things that needed cloth. There's quite a few speakers that have cloth on them.
Right.
And she would make that for me. I'm not a seamstress, but since she passed away, today was 7 years ago she passed away. And after that, I decided I'm going to try to do this. So then I do it now, you know, if I need it. Thank goodness there's not that, I don't need that many of them. But
I'm glad you kept doing it because you did quite a few speakers for me and they turned out great. You did a beautiful job.
Yeah, I don't know how many's out there, but I'll tell you, I had in this room, I had 195 speakers, and on the back of the book here, we couldn't get them all in the picture, but there was more speakers in the room than you see on the back of the book.
Right.
But this is a very popular speaker. That's the Tower Castle Cone.
And they're harder to find than a lot of the other ones.
Yeah, and the original speaker that's on the book is sitting over there, but you know, that was a trademark of Tower. The Tower made quite a few different speakers.
Right.
And in fact, there's two of them over there, two castle cones. But the big ship you see over there, that's a Tower also. But they have cast iron dancing ladies. They have this big speaker here. Mm-hmm. That was made and patented by Vitalatone, Mr. Vitala. And then they made the big ship speakers. When we go around the room here, we can talk about them. But
okay.
They made them with lights in the back. But I just enjoy sitting down on a rainy day and when there's snow outside doing artwork. Sometimes it takes me quite a while to do it, but like the big cone speaker over there, I can't paint that. I have to do it outside when it's humidity is right
Just
and
right.
everything, you know.
Yeah.
And so I go through that, and I have a couple other things there. The big horse speaker that was made in Los Angeles, that's a radio, and I bought that. We were married in Tennessee, and when we got married, we found that in the antique shop. And I had to have it. But I have a couple radios here. That's a match set there with the big speaker in the middle. That's a match set for that radio.
Okay, why don't we, you want to start going through these?
Yeah.
And, okay, I'm going to get the camera off the tripod, and me and Buford are going to go through his collection. So hang on, we're going to be right back. Okay, we're back. And
Okay.
Buford, why don't you go ahead and show us your speakers and tell us about each one. Go ahead.
Okay, we'll start here, and I'll explain what type of speaker they are. This first one is a Metro here, and you see it has a cone in the back, and the cone just sits up against the back of the speaker. That's called a single free edge cone. Now, some of the speakers, or a lot of the speakers had that, but the other type speaker you see is it has a cone in the front, unlike the one up here in the back, but it also has a back on it. That's a double free edge cone. And a lot of the speakers are like that. But the popular speakers you see out there, the collectors like, is a cast iron speaker. This is a single free edge cone, and it has, it's made by Tower. It's called a pirate ship. You see the little sea creatures around the side of it. It's cast iron. And one thing you can tell, you go to the antique shops, they call them door stops a lot of times. And the reason you can tell is the speakers, you can always take the feet off. You know, in a door stop, you can't. Now, there's a few there's a few ships out there that look like door stops, but they're not. And I'll show you one over there when we get around to it. But they're actually a radio light that's set on top of the radio, and they could see the dial because it didn't. The old radios had just a lot of them just had a very small little bulb, and they couldn't tell what the numbers were, so they come out with these radio lights. But I'm not going to explain all of these, but some of these have, this is a double free edge cone, but it has a rope around the outside to protect the cone, and that was made by Foran. Same thing up here on this one. Tower made 3 different sizes of ship speakers, and this is the smallest one. That they didn't give that speaker a name. This down here is a pirate ship, and we continue over through here. Newcomb Holly made a ship speaker, and this is a Newcomb Holly. That's a free edge, and these speakers here, you see that a lot of them have very decorative bases, but it's a single free edge cone you can see in the back. Now, a lot of people wonder why they put these holes in here. That's so to increase the frequency, so the sound would, whenever you move the cone back and forth, you can't see it, but when you're playing it, it's actually moving back and forth. So if you close that up, you wouldn't get the frequency response out of it. But they also, this, you see the griffins on the bottom, very decorative, you know, and they made 2 different types of this. One is the one sitting there. It has the griffins, but it has a different cone. But this is a really pretty one here, I think.
Yeah, it is. Very
But
nice.
Unfortunately, Powell made a Statue of Liberty speaker. And unfortunately, I don't have one in here, but this is the center of it. And there used to be a big ring go around here. and the cone sat on the back. But when I got this, it was broken and I didn't have the ring. So it sat here, and I thought, I got to do something with that speaker. So what I did, I put a torch in it, and it'll run for 8 hours, just like it'll run for 8 hours and it shuts off, and tomorrow at the same time it'll come back on again.
Oh, okay.
So this is a castle cone made by Tower. It was actually a trademark of Tower.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the one pictured on the front of the book.
Okay.
It's the actual speaker. And I did, I liked some of the things that most of you know what this is. Victor.
Yeah.
That's original there. This one, I think this one's a reproduction. I don't know. But some of these little things I like, and I just collected them. But up here's another pirate ship. This speaker here, back in the early 20s, Pathé made a mechanical record player, which had a front on it just like this, and had an arm coming back, and then a needle sitting on the record, and it was nothing electrical about it. It just vibrated a cone. But in late 1924, the first speaker, in December 1924 actually, they decided to make a cone speaker. So they took the top off the record player and used it to make a speaker. And they made this in 3 different colors: nickel plated, green crackle, and a mahogany. So that started the cone speaker business there.
Okay.
And a lot of you have heard of these little guys here. This is a little nailed speaker. And back in the 20s, if you subscribed to the radio news, they would give you one. It was free. But you could buy it for $1.18. They made 2 different kinds of them. And what's really interesting to me about it is this little cone here. That's one of the cones. This is the original cone. The design on the cone is the same as the big Western Electric 36-inch. It's exactly the same.
Huh.
So I call it the Western Electric baby, but it's actually a nailed speaker. And then the RCA, a lot of you are familiar with the RCA 103. And we continue on over here. When I did the book, we didn't know what this speaker, who made this speaker. It's a very valuable speaker. In fact, I don't want to really name prices, but on this one I will. They've sold for like $2,700 to $3,000.
Well, now, that reminds me of the Dancing Ladies drum speaker.
Yeah,
you know that one.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, but this is cast iron, and this one is another Tower, but you see, they made the Tower Adventure, which is a pretty common speaker. It's usually white, but they made it in 4 different colors. They made it in a white, they made it in a gold, and they made it in all natural colors. And this is the original finish on this speaker. And they made it in bronze. There's 4 colors, this same speaker here. This is, these 2 speakers here, this is what my wife helped me make. She would do that cloth, but they made this in the purple and actually the gold. This speaker here has a wooden frame, and you see it's a Timmins, what they call a Timmins talker, and it don't tilt. It looks like it should tilt, but it don't. But it's made by Timmons, and two different Herald speakers, you know. But these are Vitalatone. This is a Vitalatone speaker, and they made two sizes of this. This is a larger one, and the smaller one is sitting over at the end of the table there. And this is made in Washington. This is a beautiful, it's not very common, but it's
I've got one of those.
Very desirable.
Enchanter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it has a design on the cone. Some of these speakers don't have designs on the cone.
Looks like you picked up a couple of nice awards on that one too.
Right. Now this is a Timmons. This was made in Philadelphia, and it's a double free-edge cone.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And this is the one I spend time painting. I've done 18 of those.
Wow.
So, but they're very desirable. You can't. I've been looking for a base. In fact, I'm trying to trade for a base right now because I have an extra cone over there. And you can see how the cone, once it's made up, it has a big cut in the back, and you just bolt it up to the frame.
Got it.
And
wow.
but they use different types of paper. This is 22 thousandths thick. Some of these, this is 29 thousandths, and some of it is like 15 thousandths. You know, it's very small.
Mm-hmm.
But as we go around the room here, this is one of the speakers I had whenever I was a kid, and I built little 1-tube radios, and this speaker really worked great on those radios. But I also had the RCA 100, and I didn't like it because I could never get it to play right. But
is that pressed wood?
Pardon?
Is that pressed wood? How they make that frame?
Yeah,
yeah,
it is.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's they made a couple of different ones with the different feet on them, and but that's a good, very good sounding speaker. And then you have the American Bosch up here, all these other type speakers. They made all kinds of metal ones, and Atwater Kent. Most of the collectors are very familiar with Atwater Kent. This is their small speaker.
Oh yeah.
And as we go across here, this is a Sonocord, which is like the ones that we just looked at over there. This one, I've only ever saw two of those. It's it's kind of, the Sonocord speakers that we looked at over there has a metal back on it, comes down like protects the cone. This one never had this. In fact, they are sheet metal type frames. This is cast aluminum. You know, it's
kind of different.
Yeah. Those were made in Chelsea, Massachusetts. Those smaller ones I looked at. Okay. This was made in Revere, Massachusetts, and but then you have, as we go through here, they made the first speaker we looked at over there is the same speaker as this, except they put it on a stand.
That's a Metro Electric. Radio lamp. I've got one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also they made a lamp. They made 2 or 3 lamp type speakers, and this is a shade for the radio lamp. Mm-hmm. You know, and I'll make those for the. I had a radio lamp sitting up here, and somebody talked me out of it. But this one is a dictagram roll speaker. And you wonder why it's a roll speaker? Well, it has two rolls of paper towels. But here's another one. This is a Music Master, and this is one of the things my wife did. She made that. Mm-hmm. And
that's great.
Another RCA speaker here. And this one is a beautiful speaker. It's different, you know, and but they made a couple different tones for that speaker. And down here you have the O'Neill LS19. It's a lighted speaker. It has lights in the back. Very rare to find one of those.
Ovals, yeah, they're rare.
Oval speaker.
Yeah.
And another RCA speaker. This one is heavy. It's cast iron. They made that in two different colors. Some of them, the other color, she has gold slippers on, and her bra is different. And but that speaker, you can't find that one either. But some of these speakers I found years ago, and I just, because you can't find them, you know.
No. Mm-hmm.
But to me in a club years ago,
okay.
And I just kept it. This is not a speaker, but it's the first radio I built to play the speakers, because these speakers are high impedance.
Okay.
And you can't play it like an 8 ohm or 16 ohm.
So you built that
So that's high impedance.
Oh.
And here's a very famous Greeby speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And this ad here is signed by Alfred Greeby Jr. And it's signed right here. It's hard to see, but it's signed right there by Alfred Greeby Jr.
Wow.
And again, the whole frame is pot metal. What you call pot metal. And I guess over the years, they got broken up. But when I talked to Alfred Greeby Jr., he was so excited to see one. You know, he couldn't believe it. Here's a speaker. He said, when I was a kid, I used to run around in that factory all the time. But
right.
This horn speaker here is very unique because it's called an after dinner speaker.
Okay.
And if you look at the bass close, you'll see the words after dinner speaker cast into the bass. I don't know if you can. It's really a heavy speaker.
Yeah, just go ahead, leave it there.
And this is a small of a teletone like we saw over there, the big one.
Mm-hmm.
And this is American Bosch. They made that 2 or 3 different designs on the cone.
Okay.
And they were actually micro veneer pressed on paper. And I can't do that, but I do the wood grain and put the design on just like it.
Right.
These are Western Electric, made in England and France, and some of these speakers are kind of unique. You never see them. But this is a trim speaker,
Mm-hmm.
and if you have the book, you can look those up. They're all in the book, so you can
Okay.
look them up.
Okay. Sometimes so a lot of times this is what you have to do. You have to take an old cone, tape it all together.
Yeah, a lot of them.
So you can reproduce the new one.
This one is the one I drew up by hand.
Wow. You're quite the artist.
And
You're quite the artist.
I like to do that stuff. And the little tiny speakers you saw in there,
Uh-huh.
they were nailed. This is an original, and I got a frame, so I painted, because of this over here, I painted one. That's the cone. The speaker's original, but not the cone.
Okay.
And
Catch up.
here's a clock. I used to make those,
Oh my goodness.
and they got different speakers on them.
Oh, that is great. I love that clock. It's nice to see the inner workings of your workshop here, Buford.
Yeah, I don't know if I tilt it up, you can see it better.
Well, I just want to catch the area. Okay.
This used to be our garage, and I needed a place to work, so I built the garage over there. So This is American Bosch.
Okay, that's the one we just showed that was taped together. And,
Six,
yeah.
608.
Okay, that looks great.
This is a Northern Electric. I just finished this one a couple days ago. Northern Electric was Western Electric,
Okay.
except made in Canada.
Okay.
This is the music cone,
Okay.
and that's a reproduction cone, by the way.
Don't fool me. That's great.
I'm going to have those available in 2 or 3 weeks. I've been asked for them, and I couldn't really do the paper to get that splotchy looking stuff in there.
Uh-huh.
But this, I did it now, and it's like the original. Here's the original.
Yeah, okay.
I got a cone behind it here. That's the original. This is a Northern Electric original.
Okay.
And they made all kinds of different cones. I'm just working on this one.
Now what's this one
This
for?
is Western Electric 24-inch, just like that cone down there. Once that cone is finished, it'll look like that. It's hard to see with the light, but
Okay. Got it.
this is the first one I ever made.
The first cone you ever made?
First
big one?
first Western Electric cone I've ever
okay.
made. I've made the 36-inch. But this front here, it's finished. I just got to put it together and then make the back for it. That's what it should look like. And a couple other things here. Some of this stuff you probably don't want to. As you can see.
Oh yeah.
That's a Lumiere cone that I was showing you. I made a garbage bag one.
Yeah.
Or made a,
That is
but
cool.
real thin, 100 pleats.
How do you do the
Yeah.
pleats?
Huh?
How do you pleat it? How do you do
I
it?
just, it's actually a strip about this long,
Uh-huh.
and I space it out because I made a template to space each out, and once I get it done, then I fold it up, and it turns out round.
Using the template.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So
Got it.
that's a Victor Lumiere cone. It's a real challenge for me to do this, and
Well, you like the challenge.
pardon?
The challenge. You like the challenge, don't you?
Oh yeah. And these cones here, you saw this picture in the other room now, but what they are, this is a cloth,
Right.
pleated cloth. They made this in that color in gold. This is the original gold here. Nobody likes the gold. And they made the small version of it. This is the smaller one.
Okay.
But now my pride and joy. You've heard of the audio pump, right?
What?
Audio pump?
Uh-huh.
That was it playing when we walked in here.
Oh, okay, yeah, I've seen those. I've seen those.
That's playing the RCA over there, and it's playing the music cone. It's playing from my phone.
Wow, that's cool.
Now, that's the old design. I've had that thing, I use it to test stuff on.
Now you can switch it over to the big speaker.
Pardon me?
You can switch it over to that big speaker, or what?
Oh yeah, you can put up to 4 speakers on that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This is a newer audio pump here. This happened to be a white one. I make them in black too, but just has a push button on it.
Okay.
And you press that button. You see the blue light come on?
Yeah.
Now it's waiting for somebody to talk to it from their phone. Now I just shut that one off over there because I turned this one on.
Okay.
So it runs off of 5 volts USB.
Okay.
And drives these speakers. It'll shock you sometimes on the output on USB. But you just push it in again and it turns it back off.
Oh, wow.
But
great.
One speaker I didn't show you over here. This was a kit back then, and it had, you could buy the cone and the driver, and you could mount it on a piece of plywood, just like an easel speaker. Or you could buy the whole complete speaker, and that's the original cone.
Wow. What diameter is that?
Pardon me?
What diameter is that? How many inches?
That's 36 inch.
30, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
That's big.
Yeah. But there's the original Timmons cone that you saw in the other room there.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's been through the war too.
It looked like it.
But I didn't have a Path A in there, but the little nickel plated, this is one of their later speakers. They made that in 3 different,
I've got one.
3 different ones.
Yeah, you did the cone for it.
Yeah.
You did the cone for mine.
This one has a ring around it. You can actually take it off the stand. This is the only one you can do that to. And this had the tip broken off of it. So I cast that tip out, put it back on there.
Wow.
So,
great.
but they made the lighted one, and they made the other one just has a flange around here that the cone just sits up against.
Now that one there has a stiff metal ring that holds the cone in place.
Yeah.
At least mine does, right? They're all like that.
Yeah, well, this is a ring with the screws.
Okay. Okay.
That, but
yeah, that was hard to get in and out. That thing was stiff.
now that proves that I do this, somebody gave me this mouse pad.
That is great.
That's the Western Electric. That's about it.
Well, that about does it for this video. I hope you enjoyed meeting Buford Chidester as much as I did. He had a fascinating story to tell, and I found it just very, very interesting. And I hope you did too. If you haven't subscribed yet to the Roaring Twenties radio channel, please subscribe and hit the like button. I'd appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, and I'll be seeing you again real soon. Take care. Bye-bye.